Hi, I'm Danny with etrailer, and today I'm going to show you how to install the DMAX Hydraulic Actuator on your 2021 Grand Design Solitude. When it comes to these big fifth wheel trailers, stopping power is just as important as hauling power. So that's where the actuator comes in. This is going to allow you to activate your disc brakes and stop your RV. Your actuator is basically going to be the brain of the whole operation in your braking system. The DMAX actuator is going to enact your brakes a lot faster than some of the other ones we have on the market. So this is really important because when you have a really heavy fifth wheel, you're going to want that to stop quickly if you need it to. This is a durable, sealed design, so you're not going to get any leakage, and there's brass fittings, so those aren't going to corrode long term. Overall, this system is going to give you a smoother braking experience and a safer one, so I would highly recommend this system over your drum brakes. If you get this system installed on your trailer, please let us know how it's working out and how you like it over your standard drum brakes. Now, as far as install goes, this is pretty simple. You are running a couple of lines, but it is time consuming, and you're going to have to bleed the brakes. So if that's not something you're interested in doing, or you don't have the time or tools, then please feel free to check out our dealer locator. We can find a professional in your area to get this done for you. But without further ado, follow along and I'll show you how to do it. I got our actuator here, and now I need to find a spot in our front compartment in our RV where I'm going to mount this. Now, something to keep in mind is you may need some duplex wiring. It's just two wires that are in a waterproof sheathing that you're going to have to run from your junction box to your actuator. We looked out here. We have a pretty open front compartment, so we can really mount this anywhere. I'm just going to go ahead and mount it pretty close to the battery and where our wiring is going to be. Now, I'm going to hold off on mounting it before I get some of my cables ran. The blue wire here is going to go to your brake controller's output on your truck that's towing your RV. And it's going to simply go up to your 7-pole. Now, your yellow wire here is going to go to your breakaway switch, and then the white is going to be your ground, the black is going to be your power. Our junction box is right above our pin box, and I already took the cover off, and now we need to start testing for the wires we need. First, I'm going to test the wires for our breakaway switch, and it's usually always the blue wire, but it's always good to check. So you can plug it into your vehicle and activate your brake controller and give this a test. And yes, it is the blue wire. At this point, you would get your wire and fish this all the way in to our actuator is. You could just unscrew these, have this drop down a little bit, and fish this under here. But we actually have found our existing wiring harness for the drum brakes, so I'm going to repurpose those. And that wire is right here, and this goes all the way to some wire loom right near our battery backs where we can use it. This is our white wire that used to be our ground that we're going to repurpose. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cut, and I'll tape this off just so that's not a live copper showing. Now I'll do the same thing with our breakaway switch. So this is the one we're going to tap into. Get this cut back and taped up. I'll use a heat shrink butt connector and get these attached. I always like to give a good tug on it, make sure it is properly seated in there. Over in this front compartment, we got our wire harness over on the left side. And this gray wire with the sheathing is going to house our white wire and our black wire. So I'll cut this open and get these spliced to where they need to go. And this black wire goes all the way up to our junction box, and this is going to be our power wire from our 7-pole connection. Go ahead and start with this gray wire. I'll get this cut. And this end I'm actually going to tape back because we're not using that end anymore. And this end I'll get stripped back. And our blue wire, again, is going to go to our blue wire on our actuator, and the white is going to go to our yellow. I'll get heat shrink butt connectors on these as well. We had this wire around the shop, and I do have to extend this down so we can reach our wires on our actuator. And it is always good to do light colored wires, but again, I just had this lying around, so I'm going to do white to white and blue to black. Now I'll get these crimped on. The blue's going to our black, which is going to our blue. And the yellow is our breakaway switch wire, and that's going to go to our white. And like I said, this is our black wire, that's going to be our power. And this goes down to a circuit breaker right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that nut off, and I've already extended our black wire just a little bit. And I'll go ahead and get a ring terminal and get this tightened down on our nut here. Just using a 10mm wrench and getting this loosened up. Now I'll get a ring terminal crimped on. Now these don't come in the kit, but we do offer them here at eTrailer. I'll get this on terminal. Now if you don't have a setup like this, you can use an inline fuse just for an extra layer of precaution. Last thing to wire up is our ground, so I'm going to put a ring terminal on this, get this crimped down. And I'm going to use a self-tapper and get this tapped into some metal. And now that we got them all connected, I will go ahead and get these shrunk down with a heat source. Before we get our brake actuator mounted down, I'm going to run some of our hydraulic lines so I make sure there's no kinks where it's going to enter. So I already got a fish, went through our frame. There was already tape here, so there's already an existing hole. And on the bottom, I'm going to tape this up and pull it through. And this is the longest line we have in the kit. And I'll get this pulled through. The 90-degree fitting will go on our actuator right here. So I just mocked it up, make sure there was no kinks. And I'm liking how this is going to look. So before I mount this down, I'm going to get this put where it needs to go. And I'm going to screw this by hand. You can use a screwdriver, but it was pretty loose. So I'm going to unscrew this and get this threaded on. This elbow can move to where you need it, but I want it to stay right there. So I'm going to use a pair of channel lock pliers and hold this down while I tighten the nut. And I got a 3/4 wrench. I'm going to get this tightened down. I self-tapped it down with some self-tappers that we had in the shop. So if you are wanting to do this, you're going to want to pick that hardware up. And now I'll connect our line. Take the plastic cover off and get this threaded in. I got a line wrench here, it's a 10mm, and I'm going to use this to tighten up our fitting. Now the only difference is it's just going to come in a little bit further, and this will allow us to get this nice and tight. Now I'll go ahead and run this to the back. I'll show you how I mount everything, and we'll go ahead and connect one of the brakes later on. Our line's coming out of a hole in the under panel, and I loom clamped it to the existing bolts that are securing this under panel to the frame. And here are the P-clamps that come in the kit. I just have them every couple of inches. Before you tighten these all the way down, it is a good idea to keep this loose so you can get the length you need. It's always a good idea, because these are a little long, to have the extra line to be up in the front cab compartment instead of back here. This is our main line still, and we're running it up above the cross member. I zip tied it to that, and I ran it all the way to our junction here. You're going to have a 4-way junction and a 3-way junction in your kit. The first one we're going to use is the 4-way. And then we're going to use these small lines, and that's going to go to our first caliper. Then your medium line, you're only going to have one in your kit, is going to go over to your three-way junction past your rear axle. At the three-way junction here, your short line is going to go to your rear caliper, and then the long line on either side are going to shoot over to the other side to the other brakes. It's going to be a brass fitting on the back side of your caliper, and I'll go ahead and get our hose and thread this in. I'm going to make sure it's going in smooth and it's not going to be cross-threaded. I'll take my line wrench and get this tightened down. And you want to make sure this is tight, but you don't want to over-tighten. So usually once it's showing some resistance, I'll go ahead and just do maybe 1/8 of an inch more. Now we can bleed our brakes. We're going to start with the furthest one. This is the line that's longest to our actuator. And I got this rigged up with a bottle on the end, and now we can put fluid in the actuator. I'll begin pouring as specified in the instructions and get this filled up. For this part, you're going to need 2 people. One person to pull your breakaway switch or hook your vehicle up and use your brake controller, and someone else to bleed the brakes in the back. I'm using a 11mm socket, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up. All right, it's open, and we got some fluid. I'll leave it on a second and close it up. Now we want to work the same axle and go from furthest to closest. So now I'm on the other side. We'll go ahead and bleed these as well. It's open. All right, it's closed. Once you've bled the brakes and there's no air in the lines and you've determined there is no leaks, we can now tidy everything up and get our wheels back on and torque down. And that was a look at the DeeMaxx Hydraulic Actuator on our 2021 Grand Design Solitude.